Gustave Courbet, the artist who challenged everything. Gustave Courbet wasn't just a painter. He was someone who openly challenged everything around him. The academy, society, public taste, and sometimes even common sense itself. People called him rude, provincial, and scandalous. But at the same time, he became one of the founders of realism in art. This is the story of a man who chose to paint only the truth and paid a very high price for it. But before we get into it, quick favor. YouTube works in a way where it only pushes videos if it sees your activity. So if you're into art history and stories like this, take a second right now. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment about what you think of Courbet's work. That's honestly the best way you can support the channel. All right, grab a coffee or tea, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Gustave Courbet was born on June 10, 1819, in a small French town called Ornans, in the Franche-Comté region, not far from the Swiss border. The town had barely 3,000 residents, and Courbet remained proud of his provincial roots his entire life, often calling himself a painter from Ornans. His father, Régis Courbet, was a relatively wealthy farmer and vineyard owner. He was energetic, charismatic, a bit chaotic, always jumping from one idea to another. One day he'd be working on land drainage, the next inventing strange agricultural tools, and then quickly losing interest in them. Locals even had a nickname for him, something like eccentric or dreamer. A lot of that personality clearly passed on to Courbet himself. His mother, Suzanne Sylvie Oudot, had 6 children, but only 4 survived. Gustave and his 3 sisters, Thérèse, Zélie, and Juliette. So he grew up as the only boy in the family. In 1831, Courbet was sent to a seminary in Ornans. And let's just say, he didn't exactly fit in. He was sarcastic, stubborn, and had zero interest in religious discipline. There are even accounts that priests were reluctant to hear his confessions. There's a famous story from that time. When he was about 11, he decided to prank a visiting cardinal, de Rohan, who came to hear confessions. Courbet started listing normal childhood mischief, and then suddenly switched to completely made-up, serious sins he had prepared in advance. The cardinal, who had almost fallen asleep, had to wake up, and when he realized what was going on, he burst out laughing and simply absolved the boy. In 1837, under pressure from his father, Courbet enrolled in the Royal College in Besançon to prepare for a legal career. But instead of law, he became obsessed with drawing. He attended classes with Claude-Antoine Beau, a student of Antoine-Jean Gros. Academically, he was average at best. At first, teachers praised his handwriting and essays, but later, he deliberately started writing carelessly, even proudly making mistakes. As an adult, he didn't hide his lack of formal education at all. He openly said that rules were made for the weak. Books didn't interest him much either. According to people who knew him, he mostly read newspapers, especially if they mentioned his name. In 1839, Courbet moved to Paris, promising his father he would study law. He didn't. Instead, he fully committed to painting. He spent long hours in the Louvre studying the old masters. He was especially influenced by painters like Rembrandt, Frans Hals, Diego Velázquez, and Francisco de Zurbarán. What drew him in most was their darker palette and realism. Courbet rejected formal academic training. Instead, he began attending independent studios, in particular Suissa's studio, where there were no strict classes. The artists simply painted from live models, freely and without restrictions. That environment suited him perfectly. Between 1844 and 1847, Courbet often returned to Ornans and also traveled through Belgium and the Netherlands. There, he built connections with art dealers. One of the early collectors of his work was Hendrik Willem Mesdag, which helped spread his reputation beyond France. Back in Paris, he became part of a circle of artists and writers who gathered at Brasserie Andelaire, a cafe where realist thinkers met, including Charles Baudelaire and Honoré Daumier. At that time, French painting was still dominated by academic traditions. Realist artists were often rejected. In 1847, 3 of Courbet's works were rejected by the Paris Salon. And he wasn't alone. The same jury rejected works by Eugène Delacroix, Daumier, and Théodore Rousseau. In 1848, 7 of his paintings were finally accepted, but none of them sold. Then, in 1855, Courbet did something completely crazy for his time. After his key works, A Burial at Ornans and The Artist's Studio, were rejected from the World's Fair, he didn't just accept it. He built his own exhibition. He called it the Pavilion of Realism. He showed around 40 paintings there and even published a manifesto where he openly said, "The artist has the right to be independent." Courbet did not seek to depict myths or idealized beauty. He wanted to show real life, the people, the ideas, the look of his own time, what he called living art. The reaction? Harsh. People laughed. Critics mocked him. But not everyone. Baudelaire and Delacroix immediately understood how big this move was. Baudelaire even said it felt like an explosion. Now, Courbet was also incredibly bold when it came to nude painting. And even there, he caused a scandal. There's a story told by Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, his friend. When Empress Eugénie visited the pavilion, she stopped in front of The Bathers, and instead of an idealized, delicate nude, she saw a strong, almost heavy, very real female body. And she blurted out, "Is that a percheron too?" Right before that, she had been looking at Rosa Bonheur's The Horse Fair, with powerful draft horses, percherons. So yeah, that comparison says a lot. But here's the thing. Back then, thin, fragile women weren't considered beautiful by ordinary people. They were seen as unhealthy, even less likely to marry. So in reality, Courbet painted what could be seen as ideal rural women. It's just that this idea of beauty completely clashed with what high society expected. Courbet was attacked, ridiculed, hated, but he still became one of the most influential artists of the 19th century. Because he broke the rules. At the same time, there was another side of his work. Paintings never meant for public display. He created them for private collectors. So people either didn't know about them, or just shrugged it off. Like, well, whatever indecent thing he painted for that Turkish diplomat Khalil Bey, that's not for us. But Khalil Bey had a very different taste. He was a collector with a real eye, and very liberal views. He commissioned several works, including The Sleepers, 2 women clearly not waiting around for men. You can see it in the crumpled sheets, in their relaxed, intimate poses. At the same time, however, the painting is distinguished by its elegance. Soft colors, an academic style, and a strong composition. It's sensual, but not vulgar. That's important. And then there's The Origin of the World. And here, things get complicated. Where's the line between art and provocation? On one side, incredible technique, deep understanding of form, rich color, almost like Titian. On the other, it's direct, unapologetic, and yes, shocking. But for Courbet, it wasn't about shock. It was about painting. That's why today this work hangs in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, recognized as real art, even if it still makes people uncomfortable. There's usually a guard nearby, by the way, just in case. And for a long time, nobody even saw it. The painting stayed in private collections for over 120 years. It only reached the museum in 1981, and even then, it sat hidden for another 7 years. It was finally shown to the public in 1988. And honestly, everything here comes down to your personal limits. What is acceptable in art? So tell me what you think. Should works like The Origin of the World be shown in museums? Or should they stay in private collections? Write in the comments. That's it for today. If you made it to the end, thank you. Likes and subscriptions really help the channel grow. If you want to support the project, there's a link in the description. And if you're into contemporary art or unique handmade pieces, check out alibrio.co. It's a platform where you can discover and buy art directly from artists. Support living art. See you in the next video.